Hello world, I'm Max. Welcome to another episode of the State Copy Podcast. As always, I'll remind you that this content is meant to be consumed in series from the beginning. See episode 0 and each segment appended for all applicable terms and disclosures. Appended segments can be identified by their title prefix, SCP.0. Thank you.
So I got a new idea for doing engagement farming, I guess it's called. So if I want to propagate what I think is a good idea, I'm paying attention to the metrics that YouTube Analytics has. And I think the number, one of my biggest goals is going to be to extend the time viewed metric. If my mission is to try and get people to stop and pay attention for a damn second, then like right now on, I'm uploading 1 or 2 hours of content. I mean, there's got to be entertainment value there just from listening to some nut. I mean, that's a brilliant reality show, even if the content's boring. It's a man losing his mind before your eyes. Or maybe he's not. But in any case, it's striking to me that, now I still have no data, right? It's just, but I found that with very little effort, you can generate, just with the right psychology. So I've been experimenting with dropping links on videos that I watched that made me think deeply or that affected my state capture. And I was thinking, now I'll just put a link to today's capture. But the problem is people will only listen in this day and age, even if you're talking about them. This is amazing to me, to people who create content. They'll only listen for like 30 seconds normally. The longest one on there is 7 minutes. And each of these captures is 1 hour to 2 hours, many of them. And there's 30, 40 hours. But of that, I mean, it's entirely in an echo chamber. And so if one of my key goals is going to be to move that metric forward, I need to devise tactics. So again, I'm talking through how I'm thinking about this programmatically and thinking of it as trying to interface with a bunch of other computers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to do my daily walk and talk captures like I normally do, but then I'm going to keep, I can't believe how much, I'm going to have the record for man who talks to himself most, as most recorded hours of talking to himself, ever. Anyways, I'm going to start doing commentaries of my thoughts on a video that I run across online. And I'm going to mark the point. So I'm going to do a collection of all of the ones I make in a day at the end of the day. And I'm going to cut them all together. And I'm going to note the timestamps for each segment. And then I'm going to go and link these reviews as a commentary in the YouTube comments, because comments suck we need to, I don't really care if what I have to say is perceived as valuable. I think that we all need this nuance. We need to start hearing each other out better. And this typing little comments that are, all the problems with social media go away if we're just authentic and we put I think everybody's really craving this. I think this idea is going to take off like wildfire because those little comments are too hard to read. You can't just say in 3-4 sentences, or even if the people who write a whole paragraph because they're passionate about something, you get an even sharper small tone. That's like you don't get any of the emotion or the context behind what somebody's writing. And by doing this, what I'll be able to do is give them more meaningful feedback than they get with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I hope this is like a manual for how to do that. So I'm going to do one right now. I just watched a video on aliens. It's so I'm going to note timestamp here. All right. Just reviewed Why We Might Be Alone, public lecture by Professor David Kipping. Cool Worlds Classroom. This came up in my YouTube feed as something new. And I listened to the first 6 minutes of it, and the major pushback I have against all of so whenever I see apparently very well-educated folks writing numbers and formulas up on the board to make predictions about the likelihood of like Goldilocks not just Goldilocks planets, but actually Goldilocks planets, meaning they have water, they have all the critical resources we think that are necessary for like carbon-based life, like what we are. They make all these predictions, but we have not gone to any of those. We're still getting this very incomplete picture of what things really look like in the cosmos. And I think we get a little bit oversure of ourselves and our understanding of how all this stuff works. And I just think that as a state copy engineer who is very focused on a lot of these same questions, I guess. How do I say this now? I think so. I don't want to go into a huge tangent on like simulation theory and all that, but for me, it's very clear that there's no purpose for any of this if there's only one fork. And you only need to look, you don't have to look very deep with the science we have today into how we were made. When you start looking at cellular biology, and then you look at atoms and quantum particles, you realize that below us is layers of complexity that we can witness, and clearly there's a level of compute active that's way greater than we can comprehend. So when you take that into account, the idea of doing this in 1 billion times over, or even 1 million times over just in our galaxy, why drive a simulator that can calculate all this if you only have like one fork? Like, it doesn't make sense to me unless the simulation's smart enough to cancel out all the unviable forks and only drive one sort of in real time. I mean, that's like a deep like physics theory thing that there's impossible for us to prove or have much knowledge of right now. But clearly it's capable of I mean, when we look at what's just under the surface of us, that's a lot of compute. And if you say, surely you can't be suggesting that something's simulating this. And I'm saying, yes, what's a beautiful ability I have developed is that I can say there is no magic. There is a logical explanation for just about everything. And that means there is something that can calculate the position of all the particles. And that thing exists. And when you realize that thing exists, then the idea of it doing it, a couple million times in our galaxy is trivial. And if you can have that kind of compute, what are you using it for? I think, so I wrote down some of my thoughts on that, and it's more organized than that. Let's see. On an argument against, I disagree with this view. Why bother spinning up a sim like this without gobs of other viable forks? No, man, we teeming with life. Look at literally everything else that's made from smaller particles than us. We are clearly working with a shit ton of compute that we can't fathom. My guess is once you evolve to light speed capable shit, once you evolve to light speed capable, shit like us looks a lot like embryos. We are a collective consciousness that hasn't figured out how to organize itself yet. And I think, I expect we are watched by some automated processes that work like sort of like an immune system of that sort of next layer in the onion of consciousnesses, consciouses. Yeah, I don't know. That might sound like rambling to you, or like babbling of a madman, but that's kind of how I think when you guys write these numbers on the board and say 10 to the whatever and whatever, and you've never freaking been there, man. You're going off calculations we've done with our telescopes about, and we've only looked at one galaxy. I mean, how do you know that the other galaxies don't have? I don't know. Maybe there is a framework of understanding that's unavailable to me, but if that's true for me, perceiving the way you understand it, know that there are a bunch of other people that can perceive an understanding of it that could be more accurate, that's unavailable to you because of the difference in how our perceptions. Man, hope that's coherent tomorrow. All right, so new habit formed. I'm going to attack these little commentaries on with their timestamps, and then that's going to be science around like an unlock in driving meaningful engagement. And all of this is just to try and propagate good information. But I think that a lot more to say on that tomorrow. Okay, first commentary of the day. The weekly Steve and Jeff that came out last night. So, takeaways. I think they describe it really well. The Titanic, or basically that the global economy is a cruise ship, and there's kind of a false narrative that's propagated that the hard times in markets get to be over as soon as Powell says so, and that's bullshit. And the markets are totally calling his bluff. And I think the question for the trader just becomes like how to, do you just go long bonds, or and I think these guys rightly want you to join their actual communities, get to their paywalled area, because they have people that are paying for that insight that they offer. So if you want like tactically how to play it, I think you have to decide to do that. I still like just reading. So my process is going to be just kind of reading the public signals that all these guys are putting out, and then just trying to read the tea leaves from there, because I can't pay everybody's paywalls. So I think it's clear that there's more like a GFC type thing, GFC 3, I guess we'll call it, on the horizon. That seems more and more likely to me. Soft landing, less and less so, especially because they're over tightening.
And when the Fed actually comes out and says, okay, we're going to pause, or even we're going to start printing and doing QE, that does not mean that suddenly we're off to the races again. I mean, by flirting with that through how they've signaled their actions, like dovish versus hawkish, and the markets, fluttering up every time they, one of them gets slightly dovish or something, because there has been those instances over the last quarter. It builds in people, I think, this expectation that when they finally say, okay, we're done, then everything will just be over. But no, that's it's not how cruise ships work. So when that happens, probably some of the worst losses are going to be locked in, because what markets will see is when they do that, there'll be an expectation that, oh, okay, it's over. We get to go bullish again. Dive into stocks, and that'll be like a really one of these little mini bear rallies. But then what you're going to see is the layoff data and all of the and credit defaults. In my life, all of the software engineers I've worked with in the last basically the last 10 years of my professional career, more than half of them are laid off right now, the people that I work closely with. And a lot of them have been writing severance, or they announced it, but the severance doesn't actually start until Q1 next year. It points to there's going to be the jobs numbers are about to change radically. And okay, so timing and tactics. What I'm going to do, because I don't understand the cyclicality of the downturn perfectly. I think there's some mechanics around a lot of demand in the long bonds while rates are so high. And I could see kind of a mass rotation into the long bond and see that do really well. But then there's also this, if we are at the, if this is the last cycle in the euro-dollar story, which is possible, then, because at the end of that, U.S. Treasuries aren't worth shit. So, but I think that's too early. So I think this takes several more years to play out. It's like some of these guys have said, even when you get all of the projections just right, if you get the timing wrong, you actually, it hurts you worse than had you been totally wrong. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split like a safe weighting across EDV and like a significant, like a 30-30 of EDV and gold. And I might even do out of the money calls on the gold position, and I'm going to do that gold royalties company, possibly. I don't know, or I should spread it across a few. I get too degen with my bets there. So yeah, in my TradFi barbell outside of crypto, I'm going to spread it out between long treasuries and gold, and I don't know how to do the gold allocation yet. Got to figure that out. And then I'm also going to do commodities, and I think uranium is important, but not yet. I think right away the demand's all LNG and crude. LNG first, probably.
just because so much of Europe is dependent on LNG, and there's so many shocks set up in the geopolitics. So I think that's how I'm interpreting this message, that basically Q1, I think we're going to see some big ugly defaults and a horrible job market and more pain in the housing, and credits market will freeze up. And then if we get like a liquidity freeze, maybe that doesn't happen in treasuries, because treasuries this time, I think people actually run to it, unlike when COVID happened. And yeah, but I could be totally blowing the tactics there, and that's an argument to maybe go figure out the private communities for these guys and some of the guys like Macro Alf. Okay, I'll stop here. Next commentary will be on Farzad Masbahi's video he put out last night. The quick little news flash about Elon stepping down at Twitter as CEO and turning it over to somebody. I think this makes a lot of sense for Elon to do. I think that most of what he wanted, most of his strategic objectives are basically done at this point. Like, he saw Twitter's value to the human collective and saw urgent need to solve the bot problem, make it self-sustaining, and to get censorship sort of exposed and set a precedent for public voting. I think is huge. This activity that he's doing all of a sudden, where he just asks Twitter and then does a Twitter survey, I think that's way more important than people realize. I think a pure social consensus in real time is extremely valuable, and with Twitter, we finally have the tools to do it, but you had to solve the bot problem. And though it's widely misunderstood, Twitter Blue and the checkmark system is a solution for that. It makes it really expensive to spam, or it allows you to easily delineate between Twitter activity where there's no paywall, there's no barrier to entry, to where you can just spawn up 10,000 accounts. Now it's very easy to see whether somebody paid the $8. Now, that solved the sustainability problem for Twitter, or is an important component of it, just as a protocol, and it's one that I was happy to go sign up for immediately. It makes perfect sense. And then in getting a new CEO, I really like Lex Friedman as the pick. Now, Lex is, one of, if not my favorite podcasters, just for the content he's put up, but he's done this new thing that I think is going to just completely take off amongst humanity, where we do proof of authenticity, where we put enough hours of ourselves out on the net, shared in a public way, to prove who we are. And what he did is the best resume ever for being the CEO of Twitter. Not only did he meet as an interviewer with Elon, but he's demonstrated publicly, like, proof of good heart, proof of hard work, proof of powerful mind, and his podcast is that. So now I think he's such a no-brainer. Like, why would he? And it's so Elon style to. He's not going to go get some D-bag like they had working there before. He wants to do the polar opposite of that. And Lex is the perfect pick. And AGI is a huge part of the story right now. And getting somebody who's intimately familiar with that and wants to design a system where AGI contributes back in a really positive way, aligning them to that role, it's just perfect. So when I read Lex's tweet, I responded, retweeted, retweeted, and I was like, yeah, give this guy a chance. But then I didn't know that it was kind of in the works. It seems like these two have already kind of worked it out, and I think it's a beautiful idea. Wholeheartedly support it. Just a quick follow-up, and it makes sense for him to now that Elon's completed all of his strategic objectives at Twitter, like the structural ones, it makes sense for him to step away because he's too much of a lightning rod and it's too distracting for all of his other business. And he's such a polarizing figure that it can create needless controversy. It's way better for him to just sort of step back and so it's deeply, the decision to do this is deeply logical to me for all parties. All right, next commentary segment. DeFi's interest rate opportunity with Simon Jones on Blockworks Empire came out this morning. I'm only 13 and a half minutes in. First thought I'm having is I'm trying to design tokenomics for the state copy network. And when I listen to sort of fixed rates and base rates and how all of how critical this is in our current financial system and the huge opportunity there is to recreate it in DeFi. But I just think we don't know what doing that the most efficiently looks like yet. And so I realized that if you want, so building really good tokenomics around a network, I want that to be sort of fluid and completely managed by the chatbot model that has analyzed my state copy seed content. So what I want to do is build up proof of authenticity in all of my audio captures, really communicate well who I am in an open source way that the rest of the network can use to compose with if possible. And I want to promote the propagation of good ideas, not from me, just purely good ideas from humans. That's the purpose of this network, is to get really good financial incentives for frictionless propagation of really healthy thought and good ideas. So if we want to set that up, I think the how the tokenomics play out, the issuance and all that, those decisions need to be run by something that's quite a bit more efficient than a human mind state. So if I can, what I want to do is build a synthetic, a digitally native, sentient, that is a model based on all of my seed data that I'm uploading to the cloud. And then I think you get the benefits of all the crazy high performance of AGI, but we get to do it in a really auditable open system. And that's it for now. Okay, important discovery. I'm listening to
DeFi's interest rate opportunities with Simon Jones again on Blockworks Empire. I'm at about the 34-minute mark. And as I'm trying to work through the state copy network, like tokenomics and like how it'll work, I'm totally I don't know why I missed this, because I keep like my subconscious is trying to pass along. I can how do I describe that? I don't need to right now. The conclusion, a valuable conclusion, is that in each new iteration, so each cycle, yeah, I think that's an argument for kind of aligning. Okay, so I've described a few times the tokenomics that I envision, how there would be sort of, I'll do 3 NFTs, one for myself, one for my first state copy partner, and one for the AGI model selected to run the tokenomics engine, or some vital component of the apparatus of the network itself, like the decision tree, the governance model. Now, once basically the time will be however long it takes for consensus to be reached between partners in each class, that understanding the vision behind state copy, just its 2 principles, and that is optimization of self, optimization of network, and tireless pursuit of nuanced understanding and gratitude of collective perspective, like valuing all of them sort of equally. So then basically in phase 2, that partner will be licensed to do the same thing I did. Basically can identify a new partner and to do state copy seed collaboration at a regular frequency. Then at that same time, I will do 2 state copy, and we'll basically on that date where we decide we're ready for season 2 or the next class, he and I will agree that that's we'll reach consensus on that. Then what we'll do at that point is we'll integrate his GPT chat model, chat-like model. So the best prediction tech we can use, we're going to point at his state data and my state data. We're going to construct AGI sort of models that are good at protecting each of our state data, and then going to integrate them into a network that can collaborate faster on the tokenomics and the governance model, seeking best outcome always for all participants and valuing the participation and encouraging participation ongoing. And then that just propagates. And then when season 3 starts, that will be both of my state copy partners and myself agreeing that they're ready to be licensed and to have their model integrated, and that it's the best thing for the quality of the state copy signal. And my first state copy partner and his new participant, once they reach consensus that they're ready, that will start season 3. And in the 3rd class, I will do 2 again, and my original partner can now do 2, and my 2 new partners from season 2 can do 1. And then we just iterate and we see how long we can do just that sustained model. I think that's a really good way to build a powerful hive mind enabled by our tech that translates really well the variability in our individual compute capability. So these are all good things. Must build.
All right, good morning. It's a beautiful day, but a cold one. Mid-30s, sucks on the bike. I guess that's my version of a cold plunge in the morning. Good sleep last night, 7.5 hours, which is good, considering I had, 20 milligrams of brownie, THC, yesterday, and I went and watched Avatar. So recreational weed. I don't usually use it that way, but as with me, nothing's recreational. It was all an experiment, and I'll dive into what I got from the experience. And I think that ends health update. I think I'm going to stick to the script a little bit today. I wrote notes yesterday, last night. I'm really pleased with this strategy for propagation, signal propagation. I think the little experiments I've done with Twitter, Discord, and YouTube interactions with rich content that I think what I need to do now to improve that is to, as I said, I'm gonna do from now on. I'm gonna do a .0 and a .1 pretty much every day of every episode. And the .0 will be my walk and talk in the morning, long form stream of consciousness for 4 miles. And then throughout the day, I'm going to capture little commentary segments on when I review good content. Hopefully, at some point, that becomes, if I can create any substantial network growth in the state copy network, and I think it's sort of inevitable, it'll work that way, then I can promote other content through that commentary process. So regardless of what I have to say or think about it, if just alone, it's basically a way for me to publicate my YouTube history. And if I can establish credibility as a good curator of data, then just that curated watch list becomes super useful to everybody else. My really goal here is to promote healthy thinking. So I try to think from first principles, what is the purpose of state copy as network software? And it is to promote habits for deep, thorough optimization of individual mind state, and the same for the network, the collective mind state. So that's like step one. And step two is to promote the habit, the thirst, the hunger for filling your, getting and refining and like maximizing your data, how do I want to say it? Your data feed. But I think the path there is through appreciation of nuance and long form podcast consumption. Hey, good morning. Hey, pup. Hey, bro.
Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Just friendly. Anyways, I'm trying to cure ADD, like terminal ADD I see everywhere. And morning. I'd say like inability for people have lost the ability to focus at all on anything. And one of the single greatest metrics that YouTube provides around on my channel that I'm interested in is watch duration. I'm really trying to solve that problem. I'm trying to get everybody to stop expecting a 30-second summary, because all of the real knowledge is in the nuance. You have to you got to put in the time. There's no shortcut. Unless we get really good at doing data curation on our network, you got to just hear people out. So in trying to solve those problems and create a network that's just founded on doing that job as purely as possible, with single-minded focus, that is the intention. And to create use all of Web3 to build financial incentives around that behavior. That's what I'm trying to build. And so I really like this idea of using, I can tell that there's a thirst for it because comments suck. I mean, no offense to Twitter and, and comment systems everywhere. I mean, they serve a function, but they're so imperfect. They just don't do a good job. There's a million ways you can interpret a one-sentence comment that somebody makes. There can be supportive sarcasm interpreted as an attack. There can be the opposite. there's just and I find a lot of the conflict that I'm surrounded by these days, I think a lot of it's from that. We have this step change in capability that's been unlocked by Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, just social networking and rich data sharing. But like the reason it's so unproductive right now, and if anything harmful, is because we haven't figured out how to use it properly. And so if I take a few minutes at the end of some content I absorb, and rather than just giving it a thumbs up or typing out some clumsy 2 or 3 sentences that try to summarize what I think about it, if instead what I do is I capture a few minutes where I kind of lay out my thoughts on it as authentically as I can, and I do it in a way that's very leverages skills honed over years of managing people, to do it in a constructive way that gets where it's not critique, where it's more like participation. And I think if I do that, there's going to be a lot of demand for that. I think that just the few little experiments I've done right now shows me that it's pretty easy to go from 0 to 1 on good signal using that strategy. So I'm going to go full bore on that starting today. I've already created 2 or 3 from this morning and 1 from last night. And I'm excited about that. This also is probably a good time so in journaling right now, I should mention that so I have this real pressure of I need income starting in March. I need some sort of income because then I'm drawing off of my retirement portfolio, which I really don't want to do. Just for the tax penalties, all that, strategically, it's I don't want to do that. So that means I need to come up with something. But I've been really hesitant about, and I've gone into this at length in past journaling. Ethically, I have a problem with managing people when the budget's uncertain. Given the dynamics of what corporate America has turned working into, all of the perks, all the fun has been sort of rinsed out of the system to maximize profit. Hey, good morning. And that's fine. That's how markets work. In the past, I would have seen that as some sort of reason that markets have let us down, but I think markets just are just a beautiful invention that lets us do price discovery. And so I don't look at it that way. It's more like an inevitable conclusion.
Morning.
Morning. It's like I said, it was basically an inevitable process of trying to get large corporate entities to compete for when the margins just get really tight. It's like, of course, the company Christmas party gets cut, but they don't realize that that's just ruining everybody's incentive to participate at all. So it used to be a fun thing that I enjoyed, and now it's not. And so I know I don't want to go do what I used to do for a living. So I think about how I could be an engineer again, optimized as an individual contributor. And I'm already spending a lot of time kind of ramping up my skills again, and I'm doing it almost all around AI. But it's like my subconscious is steering me a little bit here. It's telling me that we have enough evidence that this is going to work on some level for me to sort of go all in on it. And at least gamble that I can float myself 6 months. What sucks is selling right now is the bottom. Or close to it, like if we're not at the bottom, we're being dragged across the bottom of it. Could it fall another 50% in crypto if like Tether pops or something? Sure, but it's not, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Enough people see crypto for what it is, and it's going to happen. It's just a question of what protocols are going to win and how DeFi works when it's so highly optimized, and what the transition looks like. So I really don't like having to sell off assets where they are right now, but I think it's a good gamble. So, I might just do 3 months at a time, do checkpoints, but I think I've decided I want to do another 3-month chunk where I can just focus full bore on this. And I think if you build it, they will come. It's that. So, morning. I really don't want the distraction of something else right now. I think this is too important. I actually believe it's going to work. So, thought I'd call that out. Let's see. What else did I have? I could do a convo with friend B yesterday. Let me read that out. So, I'm not really sure where we left off in Bitch Be Cool, but I will try. Let's see. Should back up a bit further here. I asked friend B about layoffs at the company I used to work at, and it was a lot broader than I had assumed. A lot of the people I used to work with were laid off. And let's see. Friend A says, "Why are you both still up? Good God, man." Because this is a conversation that happened at like 11:30 on the 17th p.m., which is way past my bedtime. Friend B says, "I usually go to bed at 1. Friend A says, "Jesus." Some of this banter, it's not helpful to share. It's just healthy banter amongst friends. Hey, good morning. Let's see. I already said good morning to that guy. Not stoned. I'm distracted. Anyways, let's see. So friend A says, "No more talk about the real world. Max, what's new in Magic Land?" So then I responded with an emoji of what's his name, the dude from Holes, the magic one. That's like one of my favorite gifts. I'm going to include this banter here. I don't know. I think it shows like personality, like not so serious. So I feel like there's value in it. But friend B says 12-inch dick pills, and I respond, "In the metaverse, you can have whatever dick you want. Thumbs up." Friend A says, "I can't wait to die and go there." I respond, let's see, something on the other banter. I think there's shareable banter and then other banter that I don't have permission to share. Back on Metaverse. Friend B says, Metaverse is fake. I want a real 12-inch dick. I could use another inch. Why not? Friend A says, you need a black penis graph. And I respond, why stop there? In the Metaverse, your dick can be literally a Carnival cruise ship. And then I found another magic emoji. Probably best to look both ways before I cross the street. Good morning. All right. Where was I? Rich data capture. Let's see. All the size with no feel. And then it says friend A. Friend B says, did you watch The Peripheral yet, Max? I think you'd like it. I have not watched The Peripheral yet. I don't know what that is. I generally am allergic to television these days. I responded, this is Max's Metaverse, the one with Gen 7 Neuralink. Friend A says, does it deal with the opposite of reality? I respond, indiscernible from reality, sir. Friend B says, how does Gen 7 Neuralink compare to level 8 Thetan like Tom Cruise? I responded, I don't know yet, joy face. And then friend A says, Max is level 15 Pornhub Metalink. I responded, I'm pretty much off the porn these days. But yeah, if you got to, VR is the way to go. Next level. Friend B says, doesn't that need a Facebook account to use? I respond, sleep time, I think. Friend B says, that alone is a deal breaker. I responded, you can spin up a fake account if you want, I think. I don't care though. I'm actually in the like right now I'm actually on a mission to share as much as I can about my personality. So that's really, it's great because the tinfoil hat just goes away. Let's see. Friend B says, I block Facebook domains on my phone. Friend A says, nighty night. Friend B links an article in the morning about Russia sends music to the front lines to boost morale. And he says, when it comes to troop morale, no one can compete with the Russians. And I responded, nothing like a marching band to lift spirits. Friend B says, fuck that shit. I feel bad for all those suckers who have to fight there in the middle of a miserable winter. I said, me too. Friend B says, I mean, really, anyone involved, of course. I always wondered what it's like for soldiers sent to fight dumb and unnecessary shit. I responded, it seems like it's really miserable and scary, but also makes you feel alive in a more visceral ways that us normals can't relate to because the constant fear of death. Friend B says, is that good though? I replied, and you build, well, I think I expanded, and you build connections with people that go through it with you that us civilians also can't relate to. He replies, it's got to mess with your head in ways you can't even begin to grasp. I 100% emoticoned it and added, I don't think it's good or bad, it just is. And friend B says, well, joy emoticon, that goes for absolutely everything that happens. I again responded with 100%. Emoticon. We assign good and bad labels afterwards. I replied, yep, the universe doesn't care. It only values outcomes. He replied, there is no universe to value anything. It would have to be self-aware for valuations. I replied, I think the universe is like a Russian nesting doll for consciousness/sentience. Each layer spawns a new one with exponentially greater compute/complexity. I think the universe is like a petri dish for growing cognitive state. Cells compete until they can align in purpose and understanding of self/universe such that they can align towards shared purpose of constructing higher consciousness. Then those higher entities compete with each other until they can do the same thing the cells did in working in concert to construct a being of higher cognitive complexity. And the cycle continues. I go on, of course. Humans have competed in a tribal way with each other, with the other species of this world, and with each other, toward hopefully achieving an adequate understanding of self and the universe that we can mature beyond our tribal nature and align individual compute and effort towards shared best outcome and collaboration on spawning a collective consciousness made up of the best of what we are, enhanced by the pinnacle of technology we can produce. When totally optimized, like the cells were constructed by. Or the answer is 42, like the Hitchhiker's Guidebook says. Friend B replies, damn, son. The beauty is I just don't care about any negative critique. It's why I can just like put it all out there. And that's a really, like, even if you're wrong about what your prediction is or the abstraction, how you understand something, if you're able to not give a shit how it will be judged in the negative, that's very empowering. That is an idea I would love to propagate. Morning. Let's see. After damn son, he says, you managed to apply anthropomorphism to a lot of things and humans themselves. So just out of curiosity, did you make any money off the Trump NFTs? I replied, I didn't participate. I think ETH NFTs don't have the legs Sol NFTs will have long term. I do have some allocation of ETH NFT, but it's in stuff that's older and more collectible than Orange Man cards. Also, I don't think more attention on Trump is good for anyone. People that don't like him need to realize he goes away when they stop caring about him. The right buys the NFT because they think if it's successful, it will annoy the left. And then the broader market participates because they know the conflict will bring liquidity and they can profit on the right-left rage machine. Most of the volumes will be from those folks, actually. They don't really care. They see a lightning rod they can trade. And then I replied, Trump's brand is exploiting our tribal nature to generate conflict for his own personal benefit. Or profit, I said. Best we all just ignore him now. Then I replied to specifically the comment about anthropomorphism, and I actually had to look that up. Bravo, friend B. He wasn't even born in this country, and you have to celebrate the man's vocabulary. But I've heard the term. As soon as I read the definition, it made I knew where he was going with it. I said, 2 thoughts on this. I'd argue it's perfectly appropriate to apply anthropomorphism to the behavior of humans. That's kind of what it's all about. it's anthropomorphism is it's like assigning human characteristics to things like God, things you see in nature, inanimate objects, anything. That's what anthropomorphism is. So I think my response there was credible. Then I said, and as to the other things, I disagree. What I'm trying to do is spot the lowest level characteristics that all of those things share. They are all born from the same rule set. He responds, I think the bigger the group of humans, the less applicable anthropomorphism is. I replied, what do you mean? I didn't really get where he was going with it at first. Not sure why it's so counterintuitive, but I think it works. And then he says, small groups of humans can act human-like, or individuals, obviously, but large populations less so. I replied, back in a sec, I'm at the park with my kid. When I got back, I responded, I think it's because we've never had a very efficient network, and it's had super limited bandwidth. But we've solved for that with Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Google, Instagram. We haven't figured out how to use the network properly yet, though. We fill it with noise, meaningless entertainment drivel, and amplification of our tribal bickering. I think we'll figure it out eventually, though. Happy face. Joy emoticon, that's my go-to. Love that one. And then, let's see. And then larger groups of, or even the entire collective, will behave much more humanely and humanly. Friend B says, never going to happen. There's a complete break with human, quote unquote, behavior when the responsibility is delegated to a higher authority. I replied, and I'm not sure I really got that part of it, but I replied, then we have to fix that. No responsibility should be delegated. We need to act more like cells and work in concert for shared greater outcome. If we can't, then we limp along as we have till a big enough asteroid comes along and error corrects us from existence. Maybe a few survive and can try for another iteration, potentially from scratch, if we aren't able to preserve enough of our accumulated knowledge in the cataclysm. Or we go like the dinosaurs, fuel for the first industrial age of whatever the next form of dominant life looks like on this planet, with opposable thumbs and a big prefrontal cortex. The purpose of all of this can really be that simple. There's certainly enough evidence everywhere to support it if you look carefully at the science and can opt out of it's all unknowable magic that did it thinking. Then he replies with the Twitter post Elon did about stepping down as CEO. And he says, you think he'll step down as CEO? And I responded, yeah, he generally does what he says. And he's trying to build a voting mechanism into Twitter that's sort of a source for truth that can be used. I really think that's true. I think that's an unlock. When we get a pure voting system where we can assess like majority opinion and we make it as pure as possible, that it needs to be super uncorruptible, and that's questionable right now. I think Elon stepping back and handing it to somebody who just wants to build that, a lean, pure voting mechanism that we can use in our network to make collective decisions. We really need that. It's vital, and the absolute best way we could make it, in my opinion, is unencumbered by clumsy governance and regulation and just bullshit process that makes sense to us maybe in today, but in 10 years ago, 10 years from now or 100 years from now, won't make sense. So that's like one of the problems I see in the US government today, is it didn't have a good model for evolving for technology. And there's all these legacy policy decisions that were made that are ultra inefficient. And so a core requirement of any system, decentralized system of governance, I think, is the ability to iterate agilely over time in healthy ways. And I think this is a step to getting there. So I didn't type all that. That's me expanding on it. Let's see. I said voting mechanism into Twitter. That is a source of truth. First, you had to strip away all the bots and fake accounts, which is why you suddenly see votes like crazy on there. They just rolled out a ton of real bot prevention, and the Twitter Blue is an important part of that, spam prevention. Lots of indicators he's going to turn Twitter over to Lex Fridman, which is, in my opinion, a really good idea. Okay, so that's bitch be cool. Let's see. I already got over useful observations on propagating SC. Primary goals of SC: promote nuanced understanding of everything and tireless pursuit of state optimization of self and collective. I'm experimenting with really crisp ways to capture that idea. And I think that's a good one. So primary goals of this network are to promote nuanced understanding of everything and tireless pursuit of state optimization of self and collective. I could talk about Avatar. Let's see. I really enjoyed that movie back when I used to really enjoy movies. And now, this is a thing that I've heard from other potheads. When you start, I think when you fully attune to low band frequency of pot, when you watch most fictional television, like movies and episodic TV, that sort of thing, you're very aware of all the acting, because marijuana dials up your perception of people's like their delivery. It's a lot harder to get to check out of the flaws in the acting and the directing and the writing. All three at the same time you're hyper aware of, and it kind of ruins, like, you can't get pulled into the story. You're too distracted by the imperfection of it. And I thought, well, here's a story that I really enjoyed the first time around. 10 years ago, when I thought a lot different than I did and had no exposure to this marijuana, really. I thought also there's the immersive quality of that what's his name, James Cameron, puts into like, he's always trying to push the boundaries of what's possible in effects and creating an alternate, believable reality. So I thought, great, this is a perfect opportunity after my daughter went to her mom's house to eat a couple pieces of brownie and have the right experience I want. So my girlfriend and I went and saw it last night, and we got a large thing of popcorn, and we ate it for dinner. We love popcorn, both of us. It was fun. We had a good time, her and I. It's interesting for her because no subtitles. I can't wait till I got to pull that thing down off the web and then do the transcription. Oh, that is such a powerful tool. OpenAI Whisper is just a dream for a guy like me who needs quality Chinese subtitles for everything. What I want is I want it to be a streaming service that runs on Plex and runs in real time, or on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. We need this technology. We need this seamless language translation. And right now it's kind of a pain in the ass for me to do, but not really. Especially if I know in advance a movie we want to watch, I just got to run it through OpenAI. It takes about an hour or two. Like, for instance, Gladiator is a great movie, and it holds up really well, even to my scrutiny, my stoner scrutiny. And I wanted to share it with her, but I could not get any subtitles, any Chinese subs that had the timings right. They were all totally messed up, and so I ran it through OpenAI Whisper, generated my own SRT, and then I found a English to Chinese simplified SRT converter that uses Google Translate, and 3 seconds later I've got a perfect subtitles file. Sorry, necessary diversion there. That's a big win for me in life, having this tool. AI already making meaningful differences in lives. So what was I going to say from there? Oh yeah, I really want to. I want to dive into the experience because I'm almost like I'm mid interval right now, and I'm going to be basically end of next week. I go back off and reattune for high band, and so it's all science, even if it doesn't sound like it. So what were the observations I had in that state? Basically, I timed it all so it kicked in right as the credits started rolling, basically. I have my biology pretty well figured out, even for that particular brownie. It takes about 40 minutes. Hey, good morning. Oh, it's okay, Pop. What was I going to say? How about I make sure I'm still recording? I am. So, okay, so there you go. Credits start rolling, and I'm watching Avatar in 3D. Pretty high. And observations. The 3D experience is useful for, like, it was able to pull, and being high was able to let me sort of tune to how, like, I could see how I was thinking about state copy and how this long form just guy talks to himself about crazy big ideas, how inaccessible and how, like, silly it must sound from the outside. And there's that that feeling where there's, like, I don't want to, like, shame or embarrassment. Like I had access to it for a second, and I'm largely immune to those emotions these days. But I could kind of feel it for a second, and I could also, like, another thing I've had a really hard time with that I just described kind of at the beginning of this is, since kind of I've been doing so much work on mind optimization, I really can't get sucked into the story they're trying to tell and relating to the other humans in the story. I'm so, like I said, I'm very distracted by, lighting decisions and story, like, script plot failures and stuff like that. And I can't just resonate with the emotion that's trying to tell the story. And I found with Avatar, for little moments I could. And I could buy like Jake Sully's character not as this big, godlike, like emperor of the planet. He's just a dude like raising his family after he made that transition. And like I could access the emotion that the director, that James Cameron was trying to convey in like the raw emotion of trying to keep your building an army and training, like transferring useful knowledge about how to raid the evil humans, corporate rape. I'm going to get to all that later. But I could empathize with a guy leading raids while he's got his two oldest sons flying around behind him, being stupid kids, getting themselves into trouble, and that was really cool. That's a THC thing that's really neat. That you can fine tune, like to the frequency other people are running on, and you can kind of see things through their eyes a little bit. It's really powerful for empathy, I think. And let's see. Now let's get to, sort of the okay, so plot holes. There's a bunch of them. I get it. It's really hard to write a story, but like when they spin up, it feels clunky. All the explaining because there's a few really important things that I can call out one spot where I loved James Cameron's approach. And then there's a bunch that I thought were really clumsy and awkward. Like a clumsy and awkward example is when the kid who's supposed to be the bad guy's son, Spider, just kind of like, he walks into a room and he announces, "Man, it sucks that I have to wear this mask outside, but you guys can breathe perfectly in my atmosphere." And that was a plot device that was necessary so that you didn't have to deal with the Na'vi going and finding masks every time they were in a human atmosphere. There's like 3 or 4 of those that I thought were they weren't beautifully done. And then a beautifully executed one that I loved the way James Cameron imagined it in his head, where like you had, the movie was going to be unwatchable if it was in subtitles the whole time with people talking in a native dialect that he made up. So what made a lot more sense, so that we could all make all of his characters relatable, is he needed them to all speak in perfect, Western English. So what he did is he had a scene where Jake is hanging out with his kids, and he's really just kind of wallowing in the joy of being like a father and living a fulfilling life. And he's talking about how over several years, even his dumb self was able to learn Na'vi so well that when he heard it and responded in it, it just sounded like English inside his head. And in that moment, there's sort of a change in focus. I feel like there's some sort of visual effect that happens that happened really quick, so I can't remember exactly, but I just loved that. Bravo. I mean, that was a beautiful way to do that. A lot better than the other ones I described. So it's fun being a movie critic for a second, because I used to love movies when I was younger, and now I feel like I can't participate. So Large parts of that, just like of course, all the cinematic excellence. You can tell that James Cameron has had psychedelic experience. I think his whole the depiction of the deity behind the Na'vi culture is Awa, and the way I can see James Cameron trying, like he's kind of doing what I'm doing with this. Like I can tell he's had psychedelic experience that has unlocked understanding around how we're all very connected, and his time in oceanography, I don't know if that's a thing. I feel like that's a thing. His time on the water at sea has developed, you can tell he has a deep affection for marine wildlife. And he builds a critical part of the story around these whale-like creatures that the Na'vi have developed a way to communicate with. And he shows how, like, they're potentially even more intelligent. And then he really is making us just the evil bastards of the whole thing. And so you got a bunch of humans coming in a lot of ways. But to which I would I would respond to James Cameron, the universe doesn't care. I believe it. I definitely wouldn't want to kill a whale for that weird yellow shit inside their head. I don't want to give away too much of the story. Maybe I should have said spoiler alerts at the beginning of this. But I get it, I like it, and what I took from it as a perception mechanic, as somebody who's trying to understand the nuts and bolts of the different ways that we think, I took, there's an opportunity there for someone who's on a different frequency than me, having a psychedelic experience and then doing something similar and then dedicating his life to trying to create a story. So he has optimized his professional ability and skill set towards crafting good stories and storytelling. And but you can tell that he wants his life's work to be around this avatar project, and just some of the visuals and some of the I can, as somebody who can relate to that experience, I can see where he's trying to say, look, everybody, have you considered this really important detail? And he's doing it as a master of his craft, and that's really fun to watch. And it teaches me things about how to find neutral signal, a way to translate important information across the frequency spectrum where it makes sense. It's just sort of logical, and it doesn't fire off anybody's triggers on either side. It just kind of runs down the middle. It's kind of like we're trying to write like network software that's just I haven't figured out. So another thing I'm going to be doing is trying to just describe that from a technical standpoint, that whole idea. Do I have any other observations? Just nitpicks. If I'm going to give a real thorough critique, I'd say like things like the bad guy suddenly having his kids. The bad guy gets grown in a petri dish, and then they transfer his consciousness, and they explain that in kind of a I'd say the clumsier way, but it real necessary for the story to be at all make sense. And so the bad guy from the last movie, he just goes out and he goes to where he was killed, and for some reason our protagonist's family, all of his children are there. And of course, even though they're brilliant hunters and trackers and etc., and they're in a place where I guess modern sensor equipment doesn't work, they get seen immediately, and then the rest of the movie unfolds. So I don't like that. I feel like in storytelling, it can't be that clumsy. So that would be another nitpick. But overall, love the movie, love the experience, love the idea of another human out there trying to share high order thought in an efficient way, and I think there's a lot of great lessons in creating like a relatable neutral signal, like translation, and I liked all of that, and I think that's incredibly impressive, and makes the entire makes me really excited for whatever the next content is that he's planning, and I'll go probably eat another brownie and watch it. Okay, so let's see. I think that's everything I had for today. Maybe I'll just switch to listening. Maybe it's crypto banner time. Yeah, have a great day, everybody. Okay, a small flurry of ideas has just started. I'll note, still no THC today. Lots last night, good recovery in between. Today, it occurs to me that I can use, I think the new artists, what art will look like in the future is consolidated thought that gets pushed into something like stable diffusion. So, once again, my subconscious steering me to the right process without any real understanding of the whys. So a thing I did, because I needed to do audio only in this capture, at least in the beginning, is I needed to have some sort of art, because I wanted to use YouTube as the platform, because that's the one I use. And that decision now makes a lot of sense, because I'm going to use YouTube's commenting system to propagate the commentaries. That all makes a lot of sense. Now the video, it's interesting. I tried to upload just audio with just all black, and it doesn't work. Like, you can't just upload an audio file. You have to create an MPEG with at least solid black, all rendered out. So when I learned that, I decided I needed to come up with some sort of imagery. And then I experimented around a little bit with it. Like, the first looked really ugly, and then the second, I think it's starting to evolve in productive ways. But a really cool thing is I put a picture up that I liked, and I kind of enjoy photography. And when I was recently in Lisbon, I took some pictures while I was walking around town. And there was a really cool picture I took of a cloudy, a moonlit sky that was a little bit cloudy, and there's this sort of old-fashioned lantern on the side of this building, and it's right in Lisboa. And I'm looking up the street, and I just really liked the photography of it. And so, and then I just put a little blurb of the date and time that I took it, and I said specifically, this isn't a metaphor for anything, this is just a cool picture I liked. And then on the left is sort of the real branding for State Copy. And that's a phrase that I pushed through Stable Diffusion to generate that image.
And then I iterated a couple times on the content. And it occurs to me that this is sort of a new art form. And the art form is a dance with our early AGI models, where we get it to render images based on natural language that we feed into it. Well, if I want to propagate really good ideas, it seems really like a cool idea to try and build a community around taking those cool ideas and then letting everybody create real artists. I suck at art. What I did is I plugged this into the thing, and then I looked at 10 images that spit out, and I go, well, that's the coolest one, I think. And I have no knowledge of all of the different styles and filters. I mean, you can create endless outputs from one single seed phrase. If the seed phrase is important and you want that to be the art, then the image I choose doesn't really matter. It does make a statement. It does feed my state copy seed, because it's very telling as to the amount of energy I put into how to express a very important idea, and then how I select it. I mean, one thing I should probably do for my rich capture, is I'm saving all of the renders that I made alongside the images I choose to share as part of the show, because that will inform the heuristics later. It informs a lot of things about my state. So, but what's cool is if the state copy network can propagate, and if I'm successful at making that work, then you can take a really good idea, like, just the one. So I have ideas for the next batch of images I'm going to create are going to be around that really tight explanation of the goals of the state copy network and what it's here for. And that is, I'm just going to say it again right now. Primary goals of state copy: to promote nuanced understanding of everything and tireless pursuit of state optimization of both self and collective. So I will feed that, or some iteration. I'll iterate a little bit on it until I find something that creates really, I think, beautiful output, and then that'll be the picture for a week or so, or however long I decide to do it. And then later on, somebody else can try and make much better art than my crummy art, but they can use that same phrase. And if that phrase can then propagate through the art community so as to be important, like if we can all agree that it's really important to promote nuanced understanding of everything and tireless pursuit of internal and external state optimization. No matter how crazy I might sound to you, if you look from first principles, that statement is a very clear, good path for us to follow collectively. So if I want to propagate that idea on the network, I need to create like some hype around generating art around that idea. So this is a new artist concept that the first sort of self-aware perception mechanic came up with. Okay, so cool idea that I will continue to try and develop. Let's see, there was another good idea I had in there around. Oh yeah, so for I think my goals are getting more and more lofty by the second. I want the state copy network to build out the world's most powerful supercomputer, and then own it in equal share across all participants in the network. So I want to crowdsource building a something even bigger than what the guy that built Stable Diffusion did. And then I want all of the proceeds, the revenues, to stream to the network, shared across all of us, but with incentives for where. So I think revenue streams from useful products can just go out sort of as because state copy is all about a celebration of our diversity in thought. So every opinion is super valuable. But then how we create a market dynamic that's valuable is now, as individuals put out their own state copy seeds through that process I described earlier, and they become licensed to participate, to release sort of state copy network approved seeds. And the reason there has to be an approval process there is for that authenticity piece. So if we're trying to cut out all of the dysfunction of personal financial gain and all the ways to game a system, we need to prove that you understand the value. Like all participants in the state copy network have to realize that the best outcome for themselves is to put everything they can into what we are as a collective. So if we want to promote that idea, but now what we need to do, because the world doesn't work through just sharing ideas, it works through incentives and gravity. So I need to create financial incentives for that strategy to win. That's what the state copy networks. So I think what I'll do is so I initially talked about having one state copy partner generating, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate 2 NFTs in, maybe I'll do, I don't know if it makes sense for the network. Yeah, I think the network itself represents sort of our AGI partner in all of this. So it needs to have equal share. So right off the get-go, I'm going to create a bucket for AGI, the model that runs the tokenomics of the state copy network in real time. And then I'm going to create a bucket for the my first state copy partner, and then I'm going to create a bucket for myself. So there'll be 3 NFTs in the first mint. They'll go to each of those 3 individuals: myself, the AI model itself, and the network. That's how most of the early revenue growth there'll be substantial gains at the top of that network, because that's how it works, right? So that will get it well funded and get a sustaining model for the network itself, like from like a hardware and just resource, and eventually when I think it reaches parity or parity plus with my own, I think very much what I plan to do is for that model to be my, whatever the latest evolution of the predictive model using all of my state copy seed data. So that thing, that entity, that thing that's smarter than me, that's hardwired with all of my care for everybody else and commitment to getting this right over time in a sustainable way, will have, and it's going to be my first partner, right? So it's really sort of, I think eventually we'll merge with these. That's a weird idea, but just go with me on it for now. So then in the next series, what it'll look like is my human participant in the first round, after they graduate and get licensed to do their own sanctioned NFT creation on the state copy network, and they're able to recruit their first candidate for the state copy deep fundamental understanding, then they will, so they'll get the right to do that, and they'll do it, and then I will at that point generate 2 new NFTs, and I'll take on 2 new partners. Once every participant, both, I don't know if these need to go in order. I don't know if there's any value in sort of lining that up. So that's part of the tokenomics we have to get worked out. But at some logical interval, when and sort of his credibility, all participants' credibility is directly at stake, because if you authorize somebody to create state copy, basically to do enrollment for indoctrination. What's the word I'm looking for? But see, this is all a force for good. It's like just at its purest form, a celebration of all of our differences, and just trying to create a really logical framework for us to, if we create a time of wild abundance where robots are doing all of the, the grunt labor in a way that's not a prison for them, I think that's going to be important. And I really feel like as AI just becomes an expression of ourselves, if we engineer it right, but an expression of our best selves, like that's the goal here. And we need to set up all the financial incentives for it to work, for people to get paid really well to participate, but only for a period of time, and then it transitions to like something that's very decentralized, where we all gain sort of equally. But then whenever there's a new, basically when it's time to take on new state copy partners and generate a new NFT, that NFT can be a collection, can be like a stable diffusion seed. It's like an idea that is very powerful, that represents the collection of all of your work in that partnership in training somebody on this process. Then you take all of that and you squish it down and compress it to a very powerful idea that's neutral, that everybody just kind of gets, like the one I just described, the value of nuance. And it expresses it in an image that trades like an NFT collectible, that has royalty revenue wherever it's used to, and the revenue share from the AGI models that become really useful in running our society. That's a way, it solves UBI in a way that's not like purely communistic, and there's a way we can celebrate the propagation of new evolution and thought in a sustainable way, ongoing, using this. It's a really big idea, and I don't know if I'm expressing it properly, but as always, I'm going to keep iterating and try to make sense of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop this capture here. I just thought of a really important detail I didn't explore thoroughly enough when I started the whole avatar segment in today's walk and talk. So being suddenly aware of, so I want to just talk about the mechanics of perception that unlocked through watching that movie at this time with whatever my state was in the THC interval and the dose that I had in me in that time. Was I became suddenly able to perceive like another station on the radio, right? I was able to sort of tune in real time and do like I could, that's what THC unlocked for me, like pure engineering terms, I think, within the mind state. So because I could see that, I was able to evaluate. And then in real time, because of all of this internal optimization that I've been doing on how I think, I was able to go, yeah, I get that there is a wavelength where this is a very, where this won't be interpreted really well. But I recognized that that wasn't an argument to tune to it. It was actually an argument that reinforced in my mind that this is a much more constructive frequency that I'm tuned to, where I can, it's like a much more efficient use of, I know that the net benefits to self that comes from this sort of optimization gives it, when compared. So what I'm doing right there is I'm actually in real time doing analysis on two different ways to perceive the data that's coming in and then to act on it. I'm able to actually, the really cool unlock of THC there is it lets me see and feel for a moment alternate frequency of thought, and then select the one with intention that is aligns to what my core objectives are, is optimizing compute of self and the network I'm participating in. So I don't really, that is a really powerful unlock of this process of being able to sort of model out different perception frequencies in real time and then select the one you want to be tuned to and to be totally okay with that. And being sort of immune to the embarrassment, because there's always, we're talking about sort of infinite variability in our state. So there's always going to be somebody who listens to what you have to say and will critique, will only hear the negative in it, or will only be able to critique, offer up negative critique and overall perception of content. But because of infinite variability, there's always going to be somebody else who can hear what you're saying, take it seriously, and process it on the same wavelength that you are. So it's a very powerful thing to be able in real time get access to alternate perceptions, because then you can you can tweak the signal that you put out to be sort of kind of aware of that perception, and you can create something that's more neutral, where it still makes sense. Like at the end, if you remind everyone, yeah, I'm crazy, but it's good crazy. And I think that's a powerful thing that THC is doing, that's not just offering up inspiration for creative thought. It's also it's doing something very powerful to a neural net that's really useful once you learn how to harness it. So important for me to call out here. Since I'm doing the capture, I'm going to go ahead and just continue the bitch be cool thread. I had left off saying that, so I read, he generally does, let's see. I said, yeah, he generally does what he says, and he's trying to build a voting mechanism into Twitter that is a source of truth, real truth. First, you had to strip away all the bots and fake accounts, which is why you suddenly see votes like crazy on there. They just rolled out a ton of real bot prevention, and Twitter Blue is an important part of that, spam prevention. A lot of indicators he's going to turn Twitter over to Lex Fridman, which in my opinion is a really good idea. Friend B responds, well, the people have spoken. Give him an easy out. It's a bit of a three-ring circus, that whole thing. And I respond, this is all things moving in a healthy direction. Twitter is a vital service the world needs, but it was deeply corrupted by the fact its creators could censor and promote shit that fit their own agenda. Elon's MO is sort of ruthless efficiency in engineering. I think he saw a bunch of problems in a super important piece of our tech. And he jumped in and righted the ship with Twitter Blue, bot prevention, and transparency around censorship policy. Now he's going to put somebody at the helm of the ship who's done a great job publicly demonstrating that he can be trustworthy in keeping Twitter just an efficient, real-time global interconnect for humanity. I've listened to probably 300 plus hours of Lex Fridman having 2 to 3 hour conversations with some of the brightest minds on our planet. I probably know him better than a lot of people I actually know in real life. He's a perfect pick for this job. Friend B responds, I don't think Twitter is something the world needs at all. And then I respond, how else can we communicate as a hive mind? He responds, and if the world does need it, it shouldn't be in the hands of a private company. There are literally hundreds of other communication means. Twitter is build your own echo chamber self-promotion starter kit. I like that. Not much more than that. I respond, I agree, it should not be in the hands of a private company, but such a thing does not just pop into existence by magic. You need a private company and private investment to get it built and self-sustaining. Then it should be fully decentralized, and it should look a lot like TCP/IP in the stack. Like all human tech, clumsy and deeply imperfect in the beginning, then optimized through free market forces, then decentralized and fully self-sustaining. That's ABC. He responds, still, is it needed? What improvements have sprung to existence since Twitter was created, other than chasing the dick of every celebrity out there? I responded, lots, man. Joy emoticon. But you got to know how to find it. It takes a lot of practice and hard work. 95% plus of the content there is what you're talking about. But the remainder is a hive mind made up of all the brightest individual minds of our time, sort of processing events as a collective in real time. He responds, I guess you really must think that. It doesn't appear that way to me. I responded, I really do think that. I try to just say what I really think about everything these days, entirely unfiltered. And I really don't put any personal value on being proved right or wrong. Only that I was authentic, only that I was as authentic as is possible in how I express my opinion, and at the same time as deeply informed on a given subject and as much of the relevant nuance as I can be. And that I'm really honest about what I don't have enough information on to draw any meaningful conclusions about. That's a lot, but I think it's a good way to be. I'm crazy, sure, but I'm really healthy, sane crazy. Joy emoticon. That's an example of how I'm trying to communicate important information to somebody I care deeply about, and I'm trying to do it in a way that's not condescending at all. And I'm also I'm using the engagement with him as a very super valuable driver for thought for me. So it's like a dance that is vital for me to maintain. And so I'm like, the debate with my friends here has helped evolve how I think about things over time. So my motives are really to just keep that really important dialogue going, that driver for differing perspective. And I also want to give back. So that's how it's useful for optimizing how I think. But then I also want to give back. I want to, if I can show a friend how to look at something or give him a tool to evaluate things for himself that's more effective than the tools I think he has now, then that's me fulfilling the other half of my personal objectives. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. And I can't be done because right after I ended that, friend B responded, in all fairness, ... sanity is impossible to gauge internally, wink emoticon. I think he's right. But what I wanted to say, so in response, I said, right, and is completely relative to the sanity of the collective, wink. And that reminds me of one other thing I wanted to that I captured last night that I had a note about. I wanted to explain the predictions model, like GPT chat point, as rich state copy state seed. So I wanted to explain how everything we're uploading to the cloud, this through podcasting and social networking and all of that, is capturing really useful metrics about our mind states, right? And how I think state copy is going to work, as I think through all the engineering of it, is what we're going to do is we're perfecting the technology. There's a tremendous financial incentive for us to make GPT chat and future iterations on GPT chat. Very specifically, like if you go study it carefully and you use it, it's already like, there's a lot of people going, wow, is this more useful to me than Google? And it's not even hooked up to real-time feeds yet. Think about what happens when it can evaluate in real time all of the content being put on YouTube, Twitter, etc. Think of what that is. That is a very powerful thing. And we're perfecting the tools, and all of I can see, like I said, this will happen because the financial incentives exist for us to have this and continue iterating and refining and optimizing it. So building a really powerful chat GPT, think what happens when you point that at just a collection of pure state copies, seed state. Think of what that does. You're creating a really efficient tool to make predictions about how that all gets stitched together into a consciousness. And we're perfecting the tooling needed to really effectively copy how we think and model it out. Once you have that, I mean, you can build really useful tools like I said, like a cyber buddy, a personal assistant that you walk around with that runs on your phone, your personal computer, and renders out like the best friend possible, or the best lover, or both. And we are allowed to have an interaction with that entity that understands us perfectly, right? So well that it can make 99.99% plus accurate predictions on how we will respond to real-time data. Think about it. It's so useful for us to build that. And if you go look at what ChatGPT is, we are alarmingly close to being really good at it. So once you have that, you can, it makes sense that as we understand where we are technically, our data is the most important thing. And when we try and solve for a time of radical abundance, how does an economy work? Well, what we do is we harness the purest form of what our value is to this universe. And it's our mind state. Our mind state is our value proposition to what evolves beyond us. And so if we set up a financial system that equally rewards the collective for all the contributions it's making, and has mechanisms for overweighting financial incentive or personal incentive for producing and sharing quality thought, then we are engineering a hive mind of what we are collectively that's about to be really incredible. And and we are so much closer than everybody realizes. Like it's you can measure it in weeks and months away that we're going to be able to do this. So that's damn exciting. Okay, and then I thought, another note I said is, like, as I was exploring that last idea, I wrote down seed state versus state seed. Because I was thinking in my head, should I call it a seed state or a state seed? And a funny thing that occurred to me as the THC was kind of wearing off and I was doing a bunch of capture last night is I said, isn't it odd that there are at least two mind states out there in the human collective with very strong positions on how I should order that? Whether it should be called a seed state or a state seed. And isn't that a beautiful feature, not bug, of what we humans are? We got wicked variability. Joy emoticon. Once you accept that and you're grateful about it and you really appreciate all of that is our real value, it means you really have to love all the other cells. And you have to want to kind of merge with them. I think that's a beautiful idea. I'll stop here. All right, one more try, this time with the record button on. I'm going to title this next segment Religion. It flows from the end of that Twitter conversation. I replied, I really do think that. I try to just say what I really think about everything these days, entirely unfiltered. And I really don't put any personal value on being proved right or wrong. Only that I was as authentic as was possible in how I express my opinion, and at the same time as deeply informed on a given subject and as much of the relevant nuance as I can be. And then I'm really honest about what I don't have enough information on to draw any meaningful conclusions about. That's a lot, but I think it's a good way to be. I'm crazy, sure, but I'm a really healthy, sane crazy. He replies, in all fairness, sanity is impossible to gauge internally. Wink emoji. I responded, right, and is completely relative to the sanity of the collective. Wink emoji. He responds, that isn't true either. Take an atheist in a majority religious collective. I replied, can you expand on that? He says, we'd have to define sanity. I responded, are you saying that when atheists lock arms and rally behind a way to think about atheism, you just have another religion? Because if so, then I agree. I was typing that out before he said we'd have to define sanity. Then he goes on to expand, so we never come back to that. But I think that's a good point of his, like, how do you define sanity? I think the universe does. I don't think it cares. I think our outcomes define sanity. Like, whichever ones don't die are sane, would be just a tangent I want to take there. Are you saying that when atheists, no. He says, if we define it at least partially as alignment with reality, an atheist is more sane than the religious folk. Then he responds, man, you really love those cheap right-wing memes nowadays. Atheism is not a religion. It's a lack of religion. I respond, I don't subscribe to any individual wings. Raffle emoji. I subscribe to as many of them as I can find collectively. Let's pick apart religion a bit, and I'll explain what I meant by that. Remember, I authentically believe we are all a bunch of neural nets with a super similar substrate, so like sensors and like compute, and the same core OS. We just all have subtle differences in our base variables through genetic heritage, coupled with a deeply unique training heuristic, which, in parenthesis, I say is life experience. So when I think about religion as from purely an engineering and science perspective, And then I couple that with a highly held conviction that there is no magic. There is a reasonable and logical explanation for absolutely everything around me. Then I can make the following objective observations about what religion is and how it works from first principles. 1. Religion is a collection of statements that two or more nodes in the human collective consciousness have agreed on the terms of. 2. It has a terms section that subscribers must adhere to in order to participate. 3. It has a propagation protocol necessary for it to establish network effect. 4. In the past, we used peer-to-peer storytelling to store it and propagate it. Before the printing press or internet, we use stories passed down. At this point, friend B replies with a picture of a man driving a bicycle off of a pier and falling face first into the water. And then he spells peer properly as peer-to-peer with a smile emoticon. And I responded, raffle. Quit distracting me. I'm on a fucking roll here. He responds, LOL. Yeah, man, you're not too far from cooking up some Kool-Aid for your followers in preparation for the spaceship, wink emoji. And I replied, the world could use some of this Kool-Aid right now, joy emoticon. I then go on. 5. All of them have contractual provisions that you must, quote, have faith, end quote, in the story from 4 above in order to be accepted into the community that builds around it and enjoy the benefits that community has to offer. 6. The core benefits most religions offer up is access to community, which is as vital as air to a human for sane, healthy, well-optimized function. And also they offer shared understanding of all the unknowable important questions. Who made me? Why? How? What am I here for? Etc. that we use to achieve personal sanity, rational thought, sense of purpose, tangible joy, etc. So the output is a collection of humans that can work as a hive effectively. What the hive creates and how it behaves is largely directed by the quality or capability of thought and level of participation of the hive's participants. That activity and quality participation has a tight correlation to the product of 5 and 4 above. So basically, the quality of the hive mind, it attracts good, enthusiastic, active participation if the story is healthy and people can get real shared belief in it. If faith suffers because story is getting stale, that's what I say next. If the story is getting stale and doesn't make sense relative current collective understanding of universe and self, it decays. So these quality participants and that used to move the collective toward important and meaningful collaborations sort of detach, or they just grow inactive. They don't participate with enthusiasm and submit good ideas that they've really carefully well thought out and put hard work into it because they're passionate about it. That slows down or dies off. And they kind of go their separate ways until a new piece of good network software shows up that makes sense that they can latch onto. And it can't be a con, but it has to be a logical idea they can subscribe to passionately and not as something they must be tricked into. That's critical. So he replies, you completely ignore the history of religion, let's say in the Western world. And I replied, actually, I was typing this out as he said that. That's a good high level of how I view religion these days. And my former status as atheist Now I think of myself as just a mostly isolated node, anxious and hopeful for the opportunity to form a new hive mind with other people who can relate to this model, this perspective. I think we're going to make some really cool shit together. Now I replied to his comment above about the history of religion. I said, how is any of the above incompatible with religious history? He responds, you're trying to shoehorn it into the narrative of neural nets and participation. For a super long time, participation was not voluntary at all. And motivations for spread and sustaining of religious structure had nothing to do with the functioning hive mind or anything like that. So I replied, quality of hive output has a direct correlation to hive input. So if people were forced into thinking a certain way, then the quality of the hive's output suffers. And you can't be forced or tricked into hive participation if you want a smart, healthy hive mind. He responds, how does that explain anything about religion? And I replied, I think what I'm trying to do here is identify the commonality that all religions share when viewed as a whole at their lowest level. And include, I think what I'm trying to do here is identify the commonality that all religion shares when viewed as a whole, that includes all of the nodes, even the ones with non-theistic views, aka subscriptions. I don't see any benefit in deeply focusing on all the bad outcomes and behaviors of past dysfunctional hives, at least beyond the point at which we can use them as lessons for how not to build an effective hive mind. He replies, that's literally called repeating history by ignoring it. And I responded by quoting myself right before he said that, saying, at least beyond the point at which we can use them as lessons for how not to build an effective hive mind. What I'm saying here is there's no use wallowing in that. Well, here, this is how I responded. This may be a miscategorization of your views, but it sounds to me like your argument against religion is at its core something like, our documented history is clear evidence that the net effect of human hive minds is bad outcomes for our species. So we should discourage the organization of hive communities completely. He responds, not at all. Logical fallacy there. Is religion the only way to organize a hive mind? And yes, especially the myths of the desert gods have been a total mess for the Western world and perhaps the whole world. They continue kicking and screaming and are exerting undue influence on the world around us. Hence, fight it at any chance you get. I responded, when I look at history, all I see is super compelling evidence that humans working together in a hive is net good for our species, and further, it's vital to our continued evolution. He responds, man, go read some history. What effect the Dark Ages had, the 100-Year War, the 30-Year War, etc., etc. I responded, I will do so immediately on this magic device born from a powerful hive mind of concerted human effort. Wink emoji. He responds, capital ROFL. And then I just said, back in a bit, I need breakfast. I think that was a good synthesis of my thoughts on religion. And I think from first principles, that's what the Constitution is religion. The Eurodollar system is religion. If you go apply those protocols or that, if you run each of these different things through that logical framework, they all sort of fit really well, I think. I don't really see a lot of exceptions. It's a way for humans to collaborate efficiently. That's what religion is. And it can be governing systems, it can be monetary systems, it can be spiritual alignment on what we're here for. And I think a really important unlock in thought is to realize that we're all different, and that's what's beautiful about us. And the story we use to find purpose and meaning can be wildly different. But if we can both meet in the middle and say, the fact that we can all think different, have different views on these things is a feature, not a bug of what we are as a species. And if we can celebrate that and respect it in each other, and that means we don't need to reach consensus on what those views are. And I think that's one of the features of us. Like we don't want to become just a singular conscious. We need to have all those different stories. That's very important. But we also need a system for relating to each other and sharing sort of neutral information that's agnostic about that. And what we gain is we gain a much bigger collective. That means you and I don't have to agree on what created us, but we can both agree that it's valuable that we have differing views, and it's highly likely that you're going to find somebody that has a differing view on that question, but that doesn't mean we can't collaborate efficiently together toward our shared benefit. And that's the unlock in this framework of understanding it. I think that's beautiful. I would love to bottle that up and give it to every other human.